Hey Phil, this is Cameron.
Hey, what's up, Cam?
Man, I gotta talk to you about something. Have you been watching the news?
Dude, what is going on? What's up, everybody? I'm Phil.
And I'm Cameron.
Two Navy vets, just here to talk politics.
We're here with some differing views, but we're here to have a civil and a healthy discussion.
Thanks for tuning in to Pocket Politics. Welcome, everybody, back to Pocket Politics. Cameron, how you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
A day late, apparently, as we are. So normally we record this on Saturdays, but today it is a day late due to my trip to New York City, which was fantastic. I'm thoroughly worn out.
I was going to say, hopefully it was a good trip.
It was. Some good food, good bike ride through Central Park, etc. But I won't bore you with that. I think a lot went on this week. Should we go ahead and get into the business?
We should. I'd like to kick it off by talking about the big news this week, which is that deal that Chuck Schumer and Joe Manchin seem to have come to, and that's this new deal. What do they call it? The anti-inflation deal.
Yeah, it's the reduction in
inflation.
Reduction
in inflation. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Which is huge. I mean, this brings together elements that I think we've all wanted to see, at least on the Democrat side. We all wanted to see, such as funding for climate change, which is huge because I think a lot of people see that as like, oh, they're just going to build windmills. But what it really does is it adds jobs. And it's kind of like a New Deal, Roosevelt-style approach at not just lowering inflation, but increasing wages and building jobs and high-paying jobs and high-skilled jobs for Americans, which is hugely important.
So it's right now a $739 billion proposal.
And I believe the CBO said that would lower the deficit over time based on projections.
So, as you alluded to a minute ago, they're calling it the Inflation Reduction Act. Not only climate change, one of the big things that Manchin's been big on and that he made sure was in there was the lowering of the prescription drugs.
Yep, again, huge.
That's been a big Joe Manchin thing, along with the Medicare, along with the subsidies for Obamacare. That's another big stickler for Joe Manchin. He's been on those for a while.
Exactly. Well, and if you look at Joe Manchin's state of West Virginia, I mean, without lowering the cost and making prescription drugs more affordable, he would have no other way to keep his state addicted to prescription drugs, right? I mean,
well, what this does, though, breaking this down by the numbers too, is there's a $369 billion part of this that is set aside or going to go into the clean energy sector. And I was reading that they are projecting the goal is to reduce carbon emissions by 40% by 2030. So that's one of the things that they want to come out of this bill. Talking about the Medicare and the drugs, this is going to allow Medicare, or the proposal will allow Medicare to directly negotiate with prescription drug companies, which, if this all goes the way they're saying, could lower drug costs. I mentioned the subsidies for Obamacare.
And also not just drug costs, but it looks like it could lower healthcare costs in general, right? Because they get to negotiate for the price of not just drugs, but procedures and, say, ambulance rides, things like that. So that's hugely important. I will say you did not acknowledge my backhanded joke about the prescription drug problem in West Virginia. But it's not just West Virginia.
I wasn't sure that I wanted to go there.
A lot of Appalachia. Yeah, it was just
a lot of America.
Yeah, honestly. And it was a easy backhand for me to take and to pick on Joe Manchin. But all things aside, this is great movement for him and for our country.
I was going to say, I don't think. I mean, if you're a Democrat right now, you should be thanking Joe Manchin.
Well, that with the caveat that we get Senator Sinema on this, because there has been some reporting over the past couple of days that she may stick her foot in whatever, to stop this from happening.
Yeah, and there's some other folks that could hold it up, right? And I've got some of that here to talk about. But I was also going to add on some more about the bill itself, just some more numbers for you. This one, and here's a point Joe Manchin was big on. This is going to impose a 15% tax hike on businesses that earn more than $1 billion. So if you're one of these mega businesses out there, 15% tax hike for them. They were big, or there's those loopholes that some of these monster corporations were kind of using to get around.
Yeah,
And I actually saw. I was just going to say, I actually saw Manchin give multiple interviews this morning on different Sunday morning talk shows, and that was one thing that he was big on. Is that, hey, we can get the money by just tightening our tax system up a little bit, and in his words, right, not mine, but his words, making everyone pay their fair share of taxes.
Absolutely, and that's part of the whole thing, is that it closes the loop on some of the windfall profits that these huge corporations have. It also closes the loop on capital gains of interest, which is really good, because a lot of people, depending on their situation, like, you don't have to make a lot of money to suffer a huge capital gains tax. But to suffer a capital gains tax on interest earned, you kind of have to be rich AF, right?
Yeah.
So it's closing the loop on that, and then it's also putting more funding into the IRS itself to tighten up the way it does things.
To check on the...
And do checks and balances, and to do more investigations, which is huge. And I think that's why the CBO gave this its thumbs up. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, that's the Congressional Budget Office. It's like an independent fiscal and financial auditor of congressional dealings and procedures.
Now, here's something else Joe Manchin was hitting on, and I think Schumer has too, to be fair, but $300 billion of this will go to pay down the debt.
Mm-hmm.
So that was something else that Manchin was talking about this morning. Listen, when I heard Manchin being interviewed, he was getting pressed, talking about why now? Why are you suddenly on board with this? And Manchin, to be fair, he said, hey, look, I tried to get there for months with Build Back Better. I just couldn't. I wanted something that was fiscally responsible. I didn't think it was. Some economists have said it wasn't either. And they said, well, then why did you and Chuck Schumer essentially kind of go off in secret and start working on this? And Manchin said, look, we've had some differences in the past. We decided we were going to put them aside and see if we could get something done. And that's what they did. Now, he talked about why they were working kind of in, I don't know if you want to say secret, but they were supposedly for a while holed up in an office somewhere kind of away from everyone. And one of the things that he said was, to be honest with you, I didn't want to get everyone's hopes up again, because he said for months now, really for the last year and some change, it's been, hey, here's Build Back Better. Joe Manchin thinks he's in. And then he said, roller coaster ride, I wasn't. And then everybody's upset, blah, blah. So he goes, I didn't want to put him through that anymore. He goes, I wanted to talk with him and see what we could come up with. He goes, we're not trying to hold anything back. It's out there. Let people come look at what we've got. But I will tell you, him and Chuck Schumer think they've got a pretty darn good product. That's what they're feeling right now.
Now, I don't want to throw a turd in your punch bowl, but I'm going to anyway. And so we'll see how this is predicated. But if Kristen Sinema tanks this, I will tell you that Joe Manchin probably knows that Kristen Sinema is going to tank it, and that he's fine letting somebody else take the blame. Now, with that being said, Joe Manchin has had a lot to do to repair his own image within his own party, because, come on, it's no secret, every time one of these votes goes and Joe Manchin votes against the Democrats, against his own party, he receives a lot of flack from his own party in the press, in the media, on mainstream TV. Not even, you don't even have to go to cable news. You can see this on your local nightly news show or on your local news radio. And I think that this is part of Joe Manchin's efforts to repair his poor reputation that he has right now. And I will tell you, it is only going to look he is going to look even that much more guilty if Sinema takes this thing down.
So a couple points on that. Okay. As far as that goes, number one, if you actually look, Manchin votes with the Democrats a lot. There's a lot of times he does that. They're just not. They're bills we don't see.
Yeah, I got it.
Well,
we're going to name a post office after somebody. I got it. He's going to vote with them.
No, he votes with them a lot. Here's the other thing. Now, when he doesn't, it's all over the news, and I get it.
Yeah, but when he doesn't, it's big legislation that the president can sign. But nobody cares about naming a post office.
Here's what Joe Manchin, though. In his own state of West Virginia, they love him, and that's who's putting him in office.
I agree.
So he is a Democrat in a very red state.
Yeah. And honestly, for him to do anything that moves on climate control, which hurts his own bottom line because he is, attached to the coal industry, right?
Democrats have to be thanking him. And here's the thing. If Joe Manchin,
only think of it after it passes. Only think of after it's done.
Okay, but let me finish. If Joe Manchin wasn't running in West Virginia, you'd have a Republican in that seat.
I would agree with that.
I mean, for the Democrats, like, it gets them a guy who's voting with them a large share of the time. If you really look, Manchin votes with them quite a bit. He's been an outspoken guy on Obamacare. Like, outspoken as in he's for it, right? Obamacare's a big thing with him. This drug prescription thing has been big with him. And by God, he's now in on climate change, right? I mean, is he all in 100%? Whatever. But he's making efforts to get there. And so, like I said, I think if you're a Democrat, you should thank him. Now, does that mean you have to love him? No, but I think the fact that him and Chuck Schumer got together and worked on this, I think Democrats should be happy with that.
Yeah, okay. But this is kind of like, there is an essence of this, which is comparable to people saying, we should all be thanking Vice President Pence for what he did on January 6th. No, he's not a fucking hero. If he was a hero, he would have, like, come out, testified, told everybody everything they need to know, but he's not a hero. Did he make one really good choice when he had a really bad choice to face? Yes. But now, does this erase what Joe Manchin has tanked in the past? No, and I get it. He's voted plenty of times with Democrats, but since President Biden has taken office, he has been he has hurt Biden's agenda, his own party's agenda.
Well, I think
undoubtedly,
I think he's about to boost it. Now, the passage of this,
again,
as you said, is
quick,
not
if it goes all the way through.
So let me talk passage now. You said it. If it goes all the way through, okay. Kyrsten Sinema is the big one. We don't know yet how she's gonna vote, right? What does she think about this? She has hinted, and she hasn't even said it herself. By the way, she doesn't give a whole lot of interviews. It's usually her staff talking. I don't know if you've noticed that.
Yeah,
she doesn't talk. Yeah. She doesn't talk a lot in interviews, but there's come some hints out there that she's not happy with the taxes in this bill. I don't know the specifics, but just these whisperings that she's not happy with the taxes.
Which probably means she's getting paid off by somebody.
So New Jersey Democrat Bob Menendez says he's got some issues with the deal. I didn't really get to the specifics of what they are, just that he's got some issues. I don't think he would hold it up. He's not usually one to do that, but he said it. There is some skepticism in the House. So I will tell you, there's the Blue Dog Democrat Coalition, which is the moderate Democrats, if you will, in the House. They've got that Blue Dog Coalition. There's been some whisperings that they're maybe not totally happy with this, which, again, they need every vote. The Democrats will need every vote they can get in the House because they don't have a huge margin there, or they don't have a huge majority there. So they'll need those votes. So any one of those could be sticking points. I have heard that some Republicans are already talking to Sinema, trying to court her to their side on this one. Again, I don't know who exactly or to what extent. There's zero Republican support for this. I think anybody is high if they think any Republican is going to come behind on this. Now, I did hear, I think it was Pat Toomey was talking about, or no, I'm sorry, it was Cassidy out of Louisiana was talking about oil's going to go up because of this, which will mean gas prices up. He says taxes will go up.
Yeah, taxes are going to go up for the filthy rich.
Well, he and other Republicans are saying for the middle class. Again,
they can just say that.
I haven't looked totally into this, but I will say this: Larry Summers, economist, I think he was in the Bush administration, etc. He is someone who was outspoken against that Build Back Better. I don't know if he was terribly outspoken, but he just said, "Hey, I don't think this is a very good plan. I think this is going to cost a lot of money, and we're not going to get much out of it." And so a lot of Republicans were like, "Hey, Summers, economist, big in this, says it's a bad thing," and they were running with what he said. Larry Summers has come out, looked at this Manchin-Schumer deal, and more or less blessed it. Mm-hmm. Said he thinks it's a good plan. So for the Republicans, they're not, at least for Summers, they're not going to be able to fall back on him. Will it bring down the debt? Looks like it will. Will it stop inflation? I don't know that it's going to put an abrupt, stop on inflation.
Well,
we'll have to let this play out to see kind of how that'll go.
Yeah, but absolutely. But let's keep in mind, inflation is relative, right? So there's no real stop to inflation. The only way to counteract inflation is to do it with wages and productivity. And so, yes, every Republican can get up in front of the camera on CNN or Fox News or whatever channel they want to get on and say, well, it's not going to stop inflation. No, nothing has stopped inflation. Inflation's never been stopped in the history of the country, right? When your grandpa was buying gas, it was a nickel, or whatever they want to say. We've heard all those things from our elders. Inflation never stops.
It never stops, but I think
it just gets counterbalanced by wages and jobs and productivity.
Agreed. I think people are saying, can it slow it down? That's kind of what people are looking for out of this bill. But
keep in mind, there was a bill to counteract inflation directly and put limits on windfall profits and things like that a week ago, that how many Republicans voted against? It was sizable.
So
in the House. So
yeah. I don't think this bill gets held up. I think it's going to pass. I do. I think it's going to pass. Now again, they don't need any Republican support for this to pass in the Senate. But I think they get through. I think Sinema's going to come around. I think some of the other Democrats that are talking right now, I think they'll come around. And here's the thing. Now, I could be dead wrong. It may get held up. Sinema may hold it up, etc. But here's the thing, right? And I think you and I talked about this earlier. Because it is a reconciliation deal, it bypasses the filibuster. All the Democrats need is a simple majority to get it, which I think the indications are they can get. But here's the thing. I will say this. If they get this through, Biden has to look at this as a victory, right? He's been clamoring for something.
Hold on, let me come back to that, because I'm going to touch on this a little bit later. But we got to get through the rest of our talking points before I touch on this, because I'm going to make a point exactly where you're going, and we can shelve that for a second. I do real quick. The other thing that I want to briefly mention, shelve, and then we'll come back to it later, is there is a deep tryst going on within the two parties right now that includes this bill, also includes the two things that we're about to talk about next. Yeah. With that being said, let's move on to the semiconductor bill.
Yeah, I was just going to say, though, to close that up, though, if this gets through, that's a victory for Biden.
Absolutely.
It is a victory for Biden. And what I was just going to say there was, looking at his approval ratings, where they've been going, and I mean, we've talked about that in other shows, et cetera, right? They continue to go down, but I think he's been looking for something. And we've kind of talked about the Democrats as...
And you're just not going to let me save this till the end, right? We got to do it right now? We got other things to talk about that are going to add to this sentiment.
But I am just going to say, though, that I think that it is a victory for him, and I think the Democrats have been craving that. So,
absolutely.
So let's look at the semiconductor bill that did pass, a $280 billion CHIPS and Science Act bill that has made it through the Senate and the House. In the Senate, it was 64 to 33. And in the House, it was 243 to 187, and there is some interesting breakdown in how this was voted. I just want to say this real quick, Phil. What this will do, though, is subsidize semiconductor chip manufacturing and essentially invest in science and technology. That's what this bill is designed to do.
Yep. So, again, this is a huge win. When this gets signed on the Republicans' desk, or when this gets signed on the president's desk, this is going to be massive. This brings jobs. This brings high productivity. This brings less dependence on foreign countries, because we're going to be making these things in our own country, which, guess what? The overarching effects of all this is huge, Cameron. Do you know what takes semiconductors?
All kinds of things.
Everything.
Yeah, I was going to say everything from toys on up to cars.
Yeah, but you want to talk about problems that we've had in the supply chain over the past couple of years since COVID started?
Oh, no,
this solves this supply chain problem, right?
Yeah, semiconductor, and that's why people have wanted this bill to get out there.
Rental car shortages, transportation issues, supply chain management. This solves all kinds of stuff. This allows the country as a whole to be more productive and dependent on its own thing. So the Republicans can run around and scream America first all they want. This right here is embodied America first.
A bunch of them voted for it, too.
Absolutely, so. Yeah, but some voted against. I won't call them out by name.
But. No, but so let's talk about that, right? A lot of Republicans were for this, okay? A number of them were. In the Senate, right, like I said, it was 64 to 33. Now, let's remember, the Senate vote was before the Schumer-Manchin bill was announced.
We're going to get to the tryst later. We're going to get to the tryst. Let's wait until we wrap it up, and then we can go in.
But again, though, the House still, they had a number of Republicans that voted for it even after that. So it's designed, in theory at least, to create jobs. The thing about the semiconductor chip bill is it will take some time. We're not going to instantly see a factory come out tomorrow from this, but I think the goal is, and I didn't see the timelines they set on it, but the goal is to get these semiconductor chips to be rolling here in the future. So, and I think, and a number of Republicans said it too. Hey, politics aside, I want this bill to go through if for no other reason than we can stop our dependence on China. And a number of Republicans said that they were for it. So
no, but I will say, when you say some Republicans voted against, 187 Republicans in the House voted against this.
They did, but this was also after the Schumer-Manchin deal was announced. And then politics came into play, and McCarthy told them not to vote for it, but still 24 of them defied the leadership in the House and said, no, I'm voting for it because it's going to bring jobs to my state. I'm sorry.
Which it also shows how feckless and powerless McCarthy is. I mean,
well, this was, again, we can throw politics into this, but this was a whole part about Mitch McConnell on 30 June.
We're going to get there. We're going to get there.
Okay, but Mitch McConnell, I mean, you keep saying we're going to get there. I'm ready to get there right now. But Mitch McConnell had said on 30 June that I will not support a semiconductor chip bill if you throw Build Back Better or any kind of reconciliation bill out there. So, again, a number of Republicans said, well, I'm sorry, this is going to bring some jobs to my state. I'm going to vote for it. And they did.
And so he tried to hold the elements of healthcare expansion and climate action and all these other infrastructure, all these other things. He tried to hold that hostage with semiconductors, and guess what? He still lost semiconductors, and then got hit hard with the dual bill between Manchin and Schumer. And so this obviously pissed him off, and I think this was a huge reason that led to the next bill, which I think we are headed into, which is the PACT Act.
What our listeners probably know is
legislation.
The burn pit bill. Okay, so what this one's supposed to do is allow for expanded health care for vets adversely affected by toxins. Okay, in the present, it's the burn pits, but this bill, or proposed bill, was going to go all the way back to Vietnam, right, to the Agent Orange, right? A number of Vietnam vets were exposed to Agent Orange while they were in Vietnam, and so this bill was kind of a wide encompassing a number of years that it was supposed to cover.
Yeah, which overall I think is a huge win, something really good for the party. I mean, you and I have had our disagreements on this. I get it. Well, but I will say that healthcare for veterans should be, I mean, we should be doing everything we can for not just the everyday veteran, but also for the guys who suffered serious issues in Afghanistan, Iraq, Vietnam, etc.
So going down into that a little bit. All right, the GOP objection. All right, so when the vote was put on, so they voted on it back in June, I think, right? I don't have the exact date when it was initially voted on in the Senate. It was in June. It was an
84 to 14.
Whatever. And it goes to the House. It passes the House, comes back because there were some technicalities and some stuff got changed in the bill.
Nope, nothing got changed.
Well, I'm going off with what I've read. So 8 Republicans still voted for it, but a number did not. And so Pat Toomey, who is a very fiscally conservative Republican out of Pennsylvania, came forward
just
and
to be clear, it was 5 Republicans and 3 no votes.
I had 8 GOP. I had them listed. I think it was... So I know...
I could have been wrong about that, but I thought it was 5 and 3 no votes.
I thought it was 8. Okay. I thought I read 8.
Either way, semantics. Let's not get into it. Yeah.
I know Lindsey Graham was one who did vote for it. Mm-hmm. He's retired from the Air Force Reserve, I think. Again, but anyway, Lindsey Graham, and there were a few others that had voted for it. That Moran out of Kansas, who co-sponsored the bill.
But Republican out of Kansas.
That's what I said.
Yeah,
Moran. He co-sponsored it with John Tester. So Pat Toomey, very fiscally conservative Republican, just said, hey, fix this $400 billion in the bill that he says the Democrats are going to shuffle to other things. And a number of Republicans have said that. Like, why? That's the fear here.
Yeah, but
everybody
just to be
wants
clear,
health care for the veterans. We all do.
To be clear.
But the Republicans want some fiscal responsibility.
I get it. But just to be clear, he's mischaracterizing this hugely, because that $400 billion is $400 billion over 10 years. Potentially. It's not even exactly $400 billion. It's potentially
I can
up to
only
400.
imagine what the VA
Okay,
do with $400
but hold on.
billion.
And the only thing that they did with that was they switched it from discretionary funding, which means they could use it more widely, into mandatory, which means it has to be used.
Has to be used.
Which you and I are going to completely disagree on this, but I think that's a really good thing, because it is saying this $400 billion is locked in for veterans health care for this specific purpose, and we're going to make sure that it goes to veterans healthcare for this specific purpose. Pat Toomey is out there on the news completely mischaracterizing it, and
I
guess
disagree.
what? Nothing changed. I did my research. Nothing changed between the June vote and the July vote. Nothing changed.
All Toomey is saying, and a number of Republicans are saying, is let us fix this one little part. Here's the problem. Right? The Republicans are asking to fix something. And guess what the media is saying? Republicans against the veterans. And that's not what they are. Right? That is not what they are. But people are running on emotion with this.
But it is looking very apparent, and this is the tryst we were getting to.
Now,
it is looking very apparent that Mitch McConnell got so upset over the Schumer.
So I can see where that would be, and here's what
that's what it looks like. It looks like he felt like he got backstabbed, and so he said, "Look, we are not going to go out there and allow them to pass another bill."
But here's what I'm going to say.
And by the way, did you see the video clip of immediately after the vote, them out there fist bumping each other
they shake
on the
hands
House
all the
floor?
time. They shake hands all the time.
I mean, it's sickening.
They shake hands all the time. Like that is nothing out of the ordinary in the Senate. Look. I
know, because the Senate is full of Republican assholes.
No. Now, along with Toomey, and Toomey said it this morning. And Pat Toomey said it, and good on Pat Toomey, who's holding his composure excellent. He is sitting here getting slandered by everybody across the country. And yet Toomey is saying, look, if you guys would actually study what I'm trying to say is I just want to be fiscally responsible for this, but I am not against veteran care. Neither am I. A number of people are saying this. Look, fix the bill,
Cameron,
and it's going to vote. Toomey said it himself. You fix this thing. You got 85 votes right now, and this isn't even a thing. But here's the thing. They're probably not going to fix this, and this is going to come up again tomorrow, and guess what? It's going to get tanked again.
Cameron, you're acting like this is the first time that every Republican who's gone on public TV and on the news before is told the truth.
But here's the thing.
You're holding this up, guy. You're holding this Toomey up like he's never lied in front of a camera.
Look, okay.
I mean,
that's kind of a can of worms when you talk about politicians in general.
I agree. I'm willing to open that, but I'm saying I'm not saying Democrats haven't done it either. But you're because I watched his interview.
No, I actually I read it, and I'll tell you, I was listening to other Republicans talk about it too, and I did some reading on it as well. And I'm telling you right now, this bill, there's good things in this bill. I'm not saying there isn't. All the Republicans are saying is, fix this $400 billion piece, and we're in.
Okay.
Toomey said it this morning. He's like, 85 votes will happen without even a blink of an eye if it's fixed.
Okay. We are going to transition, but before we transition off of this thing, the one thing that I will say is I have said multiple times Democrats need to get better at messaging and getting their message out there, and they are doing an excellent job with the PACT Act. Because people are paying attention to what's going on, and this looks really bad for Republicans. Because you know what? 90% of people aren't going to get into the weeds as far as you and I are, and they are not going to be able to debate this as between two veterans who this stands to affect, right? They are not going to be able to debate that to the level that we are.
Here's the thing, though, right? It's the end of July? Nobody who's voting in November is even going to remember this.
I don't think that's true. I think this is another. If you said that, I think abortion would be lost, right?
Well, I will say this. I will just say this. All right, there's going to be another vote on this tomorrow. I just wanted to kind of because I do want to run with the messaging part because I agree with a lot of what you're about to say, but there is going to be another vote on this tomorrow. I'm waiting to see what happens, but I think as it stands right now, it may get shot down again tomorrow.
And I will tell you, the best thing that the Democrats can do from now until November is go out and every time they're in front of a camera is remind the American public that the Republicans voted against abortion. They voted against the semiconductor issue. They voted against...
Well, they didn't all vote against
I'm not saying they all did. I'm just saying certain Republicans voted against all these issues.
Yeah.
Certain Republicans voted against codifying marriage equality. Certain Republicans voted against, and I only have to say certain because you're pinning me to a wall on it, but certain Republicans have voted against everything that 70+% of Americans really want. And now, if they just go out there and they put the veterans as the cherry on top of the sundae, they can remind everybody about that every day until November, and it's only going to help them. Because guess what Democrats have not done historically? They have not reminded people about their wins and their losses and why that's happened. And Republicans have done that. They've said every single day they were going to, you know what? Obamacare, guess what? They talked about it for 6 years.
Still are. Phil, let me jump in on that for a second, because I saw a thing on this last night where they were talking about this very thing. Now, I don't think this burn pit bill, I don't think has the effect some of these other ones do. Okay, I'll disagree with you on that.
Okay.
But I will say this. I saw a thing on this on TV last night where they were talking about how the Democrats seem to be getting better at branding. And you heard me a few weeks ago on here saying the Democrats need to grab these social issues and run with them. And they are, right? Now, will they generate some emotion with the burn pit bill? Sure. Jon Stewart, and several other people are getting emotional about it, et cetera. I get it, right? But I think, Phil, what this burn pit bill can be for the Democrats is just one piece of a puzzle, right? And I will say this. This year, 2022, has been just, quite honestly, a lot of bad things have happened to the Republicans. I almost said one disaster after another, and it may actually be that. I will tell you, going back to the I don't even want to say the overturning of Roe v. Wade. I think emotion came up in May when that draft leaked from the Supreme Court. That hit the Republicans. Then when it was actually overturned in June, boom, another shot. Now this whole gay marriage controversy, and all this while we have high inflation, high gas prices, and everything, Phil, should be pointing to a red wave this fall. And we just seen the Republicans are just getting slammed with all these things that it may not be a red wave.
I know, and look, I mean, you are a big fan of the Lincoln Project guys and women,
I am a fan of them. I think they brought a lot of good material out.
Even they posted this on their Instagram the other day. They just posted Republican senators are letting veterans with cancer go without health care to punish Democrats for pursuing a bill to lower drug costs and fight inflation. That's where the GOP is today. But those are the guys you're a lot of times trying to get me to listen to more.
Well, no, and they've said a lot of good things, but here's the thing. I can disagree and I can side with the Republicans on this, right? But hear me out, right? I'm just saying this. I think the Republicans, I want to say this about the burn pit, they care about these people. I don't want it to be like they don't care. I don't care, because that's not the case. They're just trying to be fiscally responsible here. But this, again, if the Democrats brand this and message this right, this is yet another black eye on the Republicans.
Absolutely. And like I said, that's why I said
hurt them.
I think they do this, they march with this every day until November. And I will tell you, before we move on, the last thing, just because I want to have the last word on this, is it is absolutely shameful that thousands of veterans from various different veterans groups showed up the day of because they were going to celebrate the legislation being passed through the House and Senate and felt betrayed right there. Moving on.
The VFW.
Moving on to.
We're talking about like some old guys from the Legion.
Moving on. Hey, they're veterans, right? Moving on to the assault rifle legislation. Guess what?
Okay.
Another thing that Republicans voted.
Okay. This was a waste of time, actually, and let me just explain why. This has zero chance of getting through the Senate. Okay?
Agreed.
The first potential ban on assault weapons since 2004. Notice I said potential. This one was voted.
Let's be real. 2004
is when it
expired. Failed to uphold it.
It's when it expired. So I was going to explain that. So the ban was actually signed by Clinton in 94. 10 years, it expires in 2004. So that's why I said 2004, right? The bill itself was voted 217 to 213. Two Republicans voted yes, crossed over with the Democrats and voted yes. 5 Democrats voted no. One of the Democrats said, I'm voting no because we've got enough ammunition. We do not, probably no pun intended, ammunition with a rifle ban, but I went there anyway. One of the Democrats said, hey, we've got enough badness on the Republicans right now. I don't want to stir up emotion on guns. And so he's like, I'm voting no.
Yeah, now, I will tell you, in my honest opinion, I think even as damaging as I think these assault rifles and the access to them has been, and there's various charts out there and
I
stuff
mean, yeah,
that just show that
you can
like
go back and forth on that.
mass shooting has increased exponentially since 2004, right? And prior to 2004, it was at a fairly low rate. Now, the one thing I do want to say on this is that, yes, could they leave this alone? I think so. However, I will counter that by saying a couple of episodes ago when we were talking about this, and we've had this in separate conversations, we said, hey, I don't know why we don't just try and get things to a vote, put Republicans on the spot, issue by issue, stop trying to lump in these huge bills with all this stuff that people can't understand and can't suss out. Let's just get things to a vote and see where people stand and then use it to message. And I think that they are trying to do the same thing with the assault rifle bill.
So I do. I think that's, and some of that is just playing politics, right? Pelosi says, hey, we can put this out there. I've got enough Democrats, or I've got enough votes. I guess she didn't have all Democrats. She had a couple of Republicans. But Pelosi says, I can get it out there. I can get it on record, and we can show where the people stand. Again, though, no chance for this bill in the Senate.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's going to get, I don't even think they'll get all Democrats on this bill in the Senate. So,
go ahead.
I just wanted to, I mean, I think we've kind of got the assault rifle. It's a fairly straightforward thing, but it did pass the House. I did want to talk, though, about something else that was in the news that I found pretty interesting, and I know you and I had a little conversation about it, is this possible new third party that is, and I say possible, right? This last week, Andrew Yang and Christine Todd Whitman, she's the former Republican governor of New Jersey, have come out and said they are going to be involved in this new party they're going to call the Forward Party. So we'll see where this goes. So the leaders say they're going to host events in 24 cities to roll out their new platform between now, I guess, and the end of the year. And they're going to officially launch it on 24 September in Houston. And they claim they are going to have their first national convention next summer. Interesting. This apparently is a merge of a Renew America movement, this Forward Party movement, and a Service America movement, which are some different kind of centrist groups that are out there calling for more bipartisanship.
Yeah, I don't know how Andrew Yang blends with this centrist. I mean, Andrew Yang is like one of the most progressive political candidates we've had in a long time.
So he left the Democratic Party and says he is now an independent, and he's vying or lobbying for more bipartisanship, interestingly enough.
I got it, yeah. But however, his ideas are extremely progressive. Don't get me wrong, I love him. I think he's like one person out there that's like, buck the mold, let's come up with something that is different and that works, or let's at least try,
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's interesting, right? They say this Forward Party is what they're going to call it. They say that they're going to be centrist and work to block, or to break, rather, political gridlock that seems to be consuming us over and over and over and over in this country. And that's the goal here. The question, though, Phil, is does this go anywhere?
There were several articles that came out yesterday. I think one from the Washington Post and one from the New Yorker, I believe.
Yeah, Reuters had something on it.
Yeah, and I think the two summaries that I got out of just perusing through the articles briefly was that this is not going to go anywhere. However, if they hold this national convention next year, we'll see what it does. This has always been kind of one of my questions. Like, why don't the Democrats have a CPAC? Right? They don't really have that equivalent. Why don't they have these turning point rallies, these other things that the Republicans do? And I think that hurts them in the long run.
Do they not have any equivalent of a CPAC? I guess I've never really thought about that.
They don't, yeah. And so they don't have these big rallies where they build up participation and bring all their best speakers out. It's basically just the Democratic National Convention that happens every couple of years. Now, we know they're not getting involved in 2022 in the midterms. However, they are possibly going to be involved in the next race. Let me just ask you this. Who does this hurt more, Republicans or Democrats?
Boy, I've been thinking about that. Okay. They say...
That was an easy question,
No,
Ken.
I know.
That was a softball.
I know, but No, here, I just want to say this.
We'll get you on the record now so we can come back a year from now. And
kind of like you got me on the record now saying I oppose burn pit bill or whatever.
Yeah, but the veteran hates veterans. That's what...
I was going to say. But
is that going to be the title of this week's pod, is a veteran who hates veterans?
Look out.
I'm joking.
No, but if you look at this, I don't think they're supposedly not going to be meddling in this fall's elections. I mean, they don't have a forward party person running anything. But going to 2024, I've actually been thinking about this. I mean, it depends on how they brand this, but I mean, I guess it could go either way on which party it hurts. But we've seen this in the past is when these kind of pseudo third parties come out of the closet, right? And there's third and extra parties in every, I shouldn't say extra, there's additional parties in every election. Mm-hmm. But every so often, and you know what I'm talking about here, Phil, we get a third party that has a little more bite. We saw it with Ross Perot back in the 90s.
Yeah, now, but the weird part of that is, who did Ross Perot
affect?
Right,
he hurt the Republicans.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say is that we get one with a little more bite, but they always take some votes from people, right? Ralph Nader and his Green Party. Some people say that ended up hurting Gore to lose to Bush, or right, took votes from Gore.
Yep.
So,
and then granted, Bernie's not really running third party, but the people blame him a lot for taking votes from Clinton.
Potentially, right? And so, I mean, we go back to Ross Perot, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, a number of people have said Ross Perot helped put Bill Clinton in the White House.
Yep.
And so it's a very good question you ask. I don't have a great answer for you because I think it really depends on how they push this party. I mean, if they come out with we're centrist but right-leaning, I think they could potentially pick off some disgruntled Republicans or some moderate Republicans. If they come out being a left-leaning centrist group, well, then they're going to pick off some moderate Democrats. So I guess I want to wait on that really to see what it is they're going to roll out with their party, because I really don't know, other than just, hey, here we are and we're going to have a third party. And it's exciting some people. I mean, I would like to see additional choices. I really would. But I just don't know that this goes anywhere. And you bring up a great question of, who does it affect and what direction they go. And that all remains to be seen.
Yeah, I'll be 100% honest with you. I think it hurts Democrats more.
Okay.
And you know what? I'll give you my explanation of why. Just because Democrats are right now kind of embodying about 70+%, 65 to 75% of the way people feel on issues. If you pull,
you're talking
if you
social issues,
not just social issues, not just social, but a lot of government issues too. And believe it or not, there are a lot of them because people are kind of upset with the status quo. And now I'm talking about this goes into
parties, though. Both parties are upset with the status quo.
But I'm talking about this goes into money, that the amount of money being spent in politics. This goes into lobbying. This goes into a whole bunch of other issues that are political issues.
Now, I will say last week I read on the show, right, that the number 67%, I think, of Democrats were dissatisfied with their own party, 65% of Republicans. Both parties are dissatisfied. Yeah. They are. Again, I think this could go either way, but I will say this, Phil, to wrap this one up, it's got to get off the ground first.
True.
And other than a couple of newspaper articles, you and I can come out and say we're going to have a convention next week, but until it happens, so
us again, and all 20 of our fans, they can have, well, maybe like 4 of them, since that's who will be able to afford to be there.
Yeah, exactly. But you know where I'm going with that, right? Absolutely. Until they can get it off the ground. So I wanted to shift in and kind of look forward a little bit here.
Okay, Phil, let's do it. But first, can I just plug the the email address?
Yeah, please do so. Yeah.
I mean, so we love the feedback. Please get out there, email us, let us know. Again, I always say this: if there is a race you want to hear about, if there is a topic that you want to hear about, maybe you're big into social issues and you want to hear us talk about the latest feelings, polls, numbers, etc. We'll even give you our opinions on stuff, as painful as that can be sometimes. We'll do it. So email us your thoughts at CameronandPhill@gmail.com. CameronAndPhill@gmail.com. And then also check out our Facebook page, Pocket Politics with Phil and Cam. Go there. Give us your feedback. We post a lot of stuff throughout the week on there. Some interesting articles. I know, Cameron neglects to put my stuff up on the actual page, so you have to go to the community tab to see it. But we do post stuff there, kind of stuff that we're seeing. Was
that a cheap shot at me?
It was absolutely, yeah, absolutely. But for real, I mean, it's just a good place to get involved and kind of get our thoughts out of there. I mean,
get your friends to like it too.
Yeah, and absolutely share the word, and then tell your friends about the podcast, friends and family. I mean, today I think is probably some of the most heated debate that Cameron and I have had, which is good though. That's what we want.
Yep.
We want it to stay civil,
which we do.
Absolutely, stay engaged. We're not splitting our hairs and ruining our friendship with this. We just like the fact that we don't always agree, and we can have debates on that.
But you know what the beauty of that is that that's how it should be. Right?
Absolutely.
And that's how things kind of used to be. Is people would actually be able to talk politics and be like, and then think nothing of it later and crack a beer together and think nothing of it. Nowadays, people have this mentality where if I disagree with someone politically, I have to hate them. And I wish we could get away from that. One more thing I just wanted to put a plug in on too while we're putting plugs out there is how all can they get our podcast? I know we're available on Google, Spotify, and Apple, correct?
Apple, absolutely. And then we are also available on Anchor Podcasts. So
Anchor Podcasts.
Four different platforms you can go to. I think most people in America listen to Apple and Spotify.
But there's other options for
But there are other options. Please tell everybody you know about it. We've been getting good feedback and good results from the podcast. So as for now, we're going to keep going.
Yep.
If you don't like it, whatever, just recommend it to your friends. Maybe they will.
Even if you don't like it, I just ask you keep listening.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you say you don't like it, you've at least listened to one, so by God, keep listening. Anyway,
moving on into some races.
Yeah, well, I want to look forward to Tuesday. So this upcoming Tuesday, we have a big primary night. I say big. We've got 5 states that are coming up on primaries, Phil, and one of them is Arizona. Now, it was, 3 or 4 episodes back, we spent some time where we were talking about the Arizona governor race.
Not even that many. I think that was like 2 episodes ago.
Yeah, whatever. It was in our past, so where we talked about the Arizona governor's race. What's interesting there is, and again, we spent a lot of time talking about it. I don't want to rehash a lot of the past, but this has turned into, nationally, this Trump versus Pence governor race in Arizona. And I don't know if you picked up on that one, but Trump is out there backing Kari Lake, who we talked about before.
Absolutely.
And then Mike Pence is backing Karen Taylor Robson. So this is
and they were both in Arizona.
They were both in Arizona
at the same time.
I looked at a poll here earlier this afternoon, and it appears as if Lake has got double-digit lead now on Robson. Like, I want to say pushing 15 points or greater. We'll see on Tuesday. But all eyes are honestly going to be on that because, like I said, politically people are dubbing this the Trump versus Pence standoff. Trump is also backing Blake Masters in the Senate primary out there. So he's gone all in on that guy, and all indications are he's going to win his race out there in Arizona. And will be getting the Republican nomination. So again, I think Arizona's a state. Well, I know you and I will both be watching because we just enjoy this kind of stuff. But I think, Phil, would you agree? A lot of people just in general have eyes on this Arizona primary coming up on Tuesday.
You know, I think they do, but I think part of that is kind of shrouded in the fact that Kari Lake is super crazy, and she's kind of using the Trump playbook, and she's going out there already saying, look for irregularities, conspiracy stuff, and she's already getting it out there. So I think, my highlight is going to see how the result is, and 2, the messaging post result. So once the race is called, I want to see what the messaging is there, because I'm sure it's not the only one. I don't know that I know another one right off the bat that's going to be this kind of hyped and crazy, but this one definitely could spin out of control very fast, and we may not know the results. I mean, the polls seem to be leaning that we're going to know what's going to happen pretty quick.
But you never
know.
But
if it's close, and Arizona was one of those states that was very, very close.
Yeah.
And we waited like 4 days, I think, for Arizona to tip in the 2000 election.
Yeah, it was a few days. Yeah.
So it was a few days. So this could be a really highly contested election, and I think there's going to be a lot of news coming out about this in the next couple of weeks.
Well, you were spot on a minute ago when you said Kari Lake's already telling her followers that there's corruption. Look out! I mean, we've seen this before.
Right.
She's laying the groundwork there. So,
and like I said, Arizona is one of those uniquely purple states that you never really know what's going to happen.
Yeah, so, I mean, I know I'm keeping an eye on it. I know you are. A lot of people are. And I think we are going to see some fireworks out there in the desert come Tuesday night and potentially in the days that follow, depending on how the vote goes that night. But moving forward, we'll at least know who is going to go on and, be the challengers for governor, senator, et cetera out there. So we should have a better idea, obviously, here come this week. I wanted to touch on another, well, like I said, there's 5 of them, but I wanted to look at your home state of of Kansas, Phil?
Absolutely.
Have you been following that abortion bill that they're going to vote on?
I mean, not only have I been following about it, but we've kind of tipped our hat at this the last 2 episodes, I think. This is, even though I'm no longer a resident there and I no longer vote there, this is kind of hugely important to me, and it drums up like this kind of sentimental, nostalgic feeling from my childhood. When I was growing up, it was a big deal. You're hearing about abortion clinics being threatened, and there were always protesters on both sides of the streets on one of the main avenues. Every time you drove down.
Is this like in Topeka, or where is it?
No, this is in Wichita, Kansas.
Wichita,
the largest city in Kansas. And this was a big deal. I mean, it is a hotbed for abortion issues going back at least 38 years, not to date myself, but probably even longer than that. And I remember growing up and living through this, and now it has come to fruition and come to a vote. And Tuesday, they are going to vote on the abortion issue. Now, I will say, with this being said, it is a vote no, vote yes referendum, right? Okay. Here's the problem I have with this, is that you could probably run a poll right now, and you could figure out exactly what percentage of people in Kansas want legal abortion and don't want, or want the opposite, want abortion to be illegal. Now, if you ran a poll that said, are you going to vote yes or vote no, do you think you would get the same result? And I think it is one of those, it's like, have you ever seen those local referendums where they basically say that they have like 6 double negatives in the wording to just purposefully to confuse people? Because the people are like, oh yeah, vote yes, I want abortion to be allowed. But that's not actually the case. So I think that this is one of those that the two parties and the way the thing is structured is really preying on the fact that people don't always understand exactly what's going on and don't understand the wording in the legislation.
Yeah, if I read it correctly, if it passes, abortion will no longer be a state constitution right, I guess, to
absolutely,
abortion.
Yeah. So that's the vote yes side. The vote no is to keep, legal abortions or access to abortion.
We'll definitely wait to see how that one turns out. And I honestly haven't really seen any polling on it. Have you seen any polling?
I haven't, but I have seen a lot of articles where they're like, Kansas is the battleground for this,
Yeah, okay.
And they are the first state to take up something of this nature, so.
Yeah. Well, moving eastward from Kansas, another state primarying on Tuesday, Phill, is Missouri, which we talked pretty extensively about that one before too. But
when we move from Kansas to Missouri like that, it evokes this like John Brown, kind of sentiment. It's like.
Well, I do have some polling though. The Democrats, we talked about this. Valentine and the Kuntz race and the Democrats, it looks like Valentine's up 39-35. Kuntz has made that closer, so there's a fairly close race there. So we don't know quite who's going. I'm sorry for our listeners. This is for senator in Missouri. This is the primary for senator on the Democrat side, Valentine and Kuntz. So that one's a fairly close race. Now we seem to have some separation though in the Republican race. So Schmidt is now up to 33%. Vicky Hartzler's at 21%, and then Eric Greitens is at 16%. Now, this is the poll I saw here from a few days ago. Phil, do you find it interesting that Eric Greitens is dropping in support? He is the former governor in Missouri who we talked about before.
Also former Navy SEAL.
He was a Navy SEAL who had this video out here, or this ad a few weeks ago where he was
homes to
hunting
hunt for
rhinos. Where he was basically talking about hunting down, and let's say it, he was basically hinting that he was going to murder folks from his own party. So do you find it interesting, though, how Greitens has dropped?
Okay, do I find it interesting? Yes. Everything associated with Greitens I find interesting. Do I find it surprising? No. Okay. I don't think people like that message. I don't see that surprising me at all. I have no doubt that not just the ad itself, but the attention, the nationwide attention to that ad has kind of doomed him. And broken him. So do I find it interesting? Of course. Am I surprised? No.
He is now sitting at a 50% unfavorability rating in the state of Missouri. So a month ago,
a political ad where you're invading people's homes.
Well,
how could that happen? He's lowering in favorability. I mean, a state where a vast majority of people don't want the government anywhere near them.
No, and you're right. I mean, if for our listeners, if you haven't seen that ad, it's you can YouTube it, pull it up on various things. But yeah, basically Eric Greitens is standing there cocking a shotgun, talking about how he's going to go rhino hunting, and then he's got a hit squad kicking a door in and throwing like a smoke grenade, a flashbang in someone's house while he walks in, telling them. And I want to say he says, "Join the MAGA crew." Get a rhino hunting license. There's no bagging limit, no tag limit, whatever. But basically saying let's go kill people. So he's so he's slipping in the polls. But you know what, Phil?
16 is not just slipping, though. I mean,
well, and I want to say this though, Phil. 2 months ago, that guy was. A lot of people thought he was going to win the Republican primary for senator in Missouri.
Yeah, I hope this is one case where he just gets washed out of politics forever.
I mean, he may, although he could turn back up running for some other office in a few years, or he could shock everyone and win the primary Tuesday night. He is saying in interviews the other day that the polls are all fake and stand by because, and this is what Mr. Greitens said, he was telling some reporter, look at the crowd size I have at my gathering. How could I possibly lose?
Now, I've never heard anybody say anything like that before.
I figured you'd run with that. Where have we heard that one before? But I want to jump back out west now, and that is out to Washington State, so out to the Pacific Coast. There are a couple representatives that are up for primaries here, Republicans anyway, that are, and that's Jamie Herrera Butler and Dan Newhouse. And the reason I'm bringing them up, Phil, is they both voted to impeach Trump. They were 2 of 10 Republicans in the House that voted to impeach Trump. You know as well as I do, when people go to speak out against the former president, or certainly those that voted to impeach him, the president does not take that lightly, or the former president does not take that lightly. Very angry at these two. So he's, of course, endorsing candidates to run against him. So Trump is endorsing a person named Joe Kent, who was an Army Ranger, a former Army Ranger, against Butler, and he's endorsing Lauren Culp to run against Dan Newhouse. And so, Phil, do you see that playing out? I mean, do you see these current sitting congressmen getting knocked out, congressman and congresswoman? Do you see them getting knocked out? Do you think Trump is going to influence it that much? Where do you see that one going?
So I don't see the influence all that much from Trump. I think that a lot of the races that he's plugged, a lot of them he has had little influence, if not negative influence in, and I think
not all,
but more so than not, he has faltered. Now, with that being said, Washington is one of those weird states, right? And there's a lot of change in dynamics in the state that make this whole thing questionable. And I think this is going to be a big kind of indicator of where the future of Washington politics goes. Now, look, west of the Cascades, right? Seattle area, greater
on the coast there,
where the colleges are, all that stuff, except for obviously, Washington State.
Yep.
That is a very liberal area.
Yep.
Now you move even further west to the peninsulas. You get a fairly good mix of a lot of it's very rural. You have a lot of liberal spots and a lot of conservative spots, all kind of intermingling in the same area.
Although a lower population kind of out in the peninsula.
It is
too,
lower
right?
population, so there's not as big of a voting block out there. There's a lot. I mean, Tacoma can be very tricky, right? Olympia can be very tricky, the capital, which is kind of odd. And it just depends on how that state comes. Now, again, lower population density, but east of the Cascades, it is very Republican. Now, with that being said, there was a pretty prominent candidate that ran against Jay Inslee in 2000, and it looked like he was building up steam, looked like he had a very good campaign being run. He was a Trump Republican, anti-vax, anti-mask, all this stuff, right, against the whole thing, and he got his ass beat. Now, with that being said, the reason why I say this state is so tricky is because there are a lot of people that are slowly getting disenfranchised because they are being moved out of their homes by the tech industry. So a lot of that expansion and every Whole Foods that pops up in somebody's local neighborhood and increases the value beyond what people can pay changes a little bit of the dynamic in that population center that Washington has that is a largely Democratic voting bloc.
And then when you talk about Washington, you talk about how the state shapes up politically. If you get east of the Cascades, it's like you're in a whole other country.
Well, that's what I just said. I mean, it is lower population density, but it is very conservative.
Yeah, out east, especially as you start getting out towards Spokane and places like
Absolutely.
that. Yeah, so it is very different. I have been reading, though, that the Republicans are hoping to gain some ground in some various races out there, as you kind of alluded to, right? Mm-hmm. But, Phil, do you think it's enough? Do the Republicans break through there, or is Washington going to stay a fairly safely blue state?
I think it's going to stay safely blue for now, but I think that if Republicans do gain a little bit of momentum, that could be a sign of the times. Right now, again, with that being said, you kind of can't mess with the greater Seattle area. I mean, it owns a huge portion of the voting bloc.
Population-wise, yeah, certainly.
It is very, very liberal.
Yeah. Looking at the other state that's got primaries going on here on Tuesday is Michigan. And a lot of people have been looking at this one. The governors, for the Republican side, the governor primary, Trump has made an endorsement there. He's endorsed a woman named Tudor Dixon, and he's all in on her. There are some other candidates running, Ralph Rebrandt, Ryan Kelly, Kevin Rinke, Garrett Soldano. But, I mean, let's face it, the former president has thrown his endorsement behind a candidate. Odds are she's going to get it, and odds are pretty good that she will face off against Gretchen Whitmer, the incumbent governor, come November. So, it looks like that one's going to shape up now. It looks like Dixon's going to, I don't want to say run away with it, but it looks like she's the favorite now. Trump's gone all in.
Yeah, I'll be 100%. I don't think there's a shot in hell that Whitmer loses this race.
So, looking to the fall, I did look that up. She's got a 55% approval rating as it stands right now in her state.
Which is pretty good considering it is Michigan.
So, well, there is that.
And then, her attorney general, her Democratic attorney general, is very outspoken and also garners a lot of respect and has a very high approval rating. So, also, and she's an attorney general.
So in the state right now,
I can't even tell you my state attorney general. Like, that's how much people don't care about attorney generals.
So right now in polls, we're looking at Whitmer leading. I mean, again, this is a poll today, just hypothetically, right? That Dixon wins, blah blah blah. Whitmer 51%, Dixon at 40%. I think Whitmer's pretty safe there, but I mean, it is something that people are watching. Just because it's got some news behind it now. Trump has made his endorsement pick, so we'll certainly be watching that as we go forward. But again, I think, Phil, for our listeners that are out there, definitely be watching these primaries on Tuesday. They'll get some coverage. I mean, you know how all the major networks will have some coverage that night. Steve Kornacki will probably be out in front of his big board.
I told you I will be there watching Steve Kornacki and his board
and his whiteboard, his board, his board of fame. But
I'm not going to allude to what I'll be flipping back and forth, but I will not be watching the Chuck Todd network.
Anyway. Phil and I have this discussion offline oftentimes about Chuck Todd. So,
yeah.
Anyway, let's plug our email one more time, Phil, for our listeners that are out there.
Cameron and Phil at gmail.com. Again, please reach out. The Facebook page is Pocket Politics with Phil and Cam. Give us that support. Like, share. Get your family and friends engaged. And today, parting shots. I think you're going with sports.
I am. You're setting the table for me. So my parting shot today as we wrap things up is with my home state football team of the Minnesota Vikings. So as we are seeing the NFL about to kick off, as training camps are beginning, I say kick off, all right, we're a few weeks away from that, obviously not until September, but as we see training camps now begin, etc., I, as a lifelong Viking fan, have my hopes up yet again for the Minnesota Vikings, but this year in particular, with the coaching changes and all of the hype, et cetera, I want to think that maybe this is the year the Vikings can go all the way to a Super Bowl. But as a lifelong Viking fan, I also know how they let me down time after time after time. So I will say, Phill, I'm excited for the Minnesota Vikings this year, but time will tell, and I don't want to get my hopes up too much. So go Vikings. I will be watching. I will be hoping. But I also know there's a side of me that could very well get disappointed. So
Cameron, I don't want to be the negative Nancy in the back of your head too early, but I have a feeling you're going to be disappointed if your hope is a Super Bowl. Either way, I'll let you hope and dream because that's what sports is all about. I will tag along on that. So, great news yesterday. Liverpool beats Manchester City in the Community Shield, right? Which is, for those of you who don't follow Premier League soccer in England, one, it's the best professional soccer league in the world, and two, the trophy that was played for yesterday was last season's champion, and the runner-up always play the last game before they start the regular season. So 5 days until the Premier League kickoff. Hey, all the big teams, for those that don't know about it, they have this Big Six, which are like the Big Six traditional winners who have won something like pretty much all but 1 year of the last 20 to 30 years of Premier League trophies have been shared by 6 teams, with one exception, like I said. Okay. And having been a Liverpool fan since about 2007 or so, which I just picked because I like the Beatles and they happen to be from Liverpool. I have seen the years where we have struggled, and the last couple of years have been amazing and glorious, partly due to intelligent coaching, intelligent management of the team structure as well, and they're American owned. I didn't know if you knew that, but they are owned by Fenway Sports Group, who also owns the Boston Red Sox. So if you're a Red Sox fan, go be a Liverpool fan too. It's the same group. But 5 days until the league starts. I'm excited, and good things for Liverpool. We've got our first trophy already.
Okay, well, it looks like we are about out of time, but we've had another great episode this week, and I want to thank our listeners and encourage them to please keep right on listening. So, like I said, Phill, until next time.
Until next time, thanks everybody, and Cam, I'll see you next week.
All right.